Hey there guys, how's it going? Welcome back to my channel, Boomy Reactions. My name is Boomy and thank you for watching my lovelies. Now today we've got a history video, quite a juicy history video to watch alongside me today. So there's something bad about every United States history and it's going to be explained here. Okay, so I think it goes without saying, doesn't it, that most places we're going to have like a dark element to some of our history. Oh, I mean, let's talk about the UK. Okay, I say the UK, not England specifically, but you know, the role of the UK in the slave trade, just to mention a handful of them, very dark periods in history. You've got endless invasions, civil wars, sieges. Oh, just to mention a handful. Oh, the plague. Very, very dark times. So yes, it goes that saying, doesn't it? There's going to be dark periods of history everywhere, in every country. And so presumably in each state, there's going to be a handful of very, very dark times. So yes, let's have a look a little bit more closely at the bad history of each of the United States. Okay. Let's get started. And guys, if you are enjoying these reactions, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, my lovelies. Thank you so much. If you're interested, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee account, and that link is over here. And if you would like to help support this channel any further, I do have a Patreon account. And if you fancy checking that out at all, that link is in the description. Whoop, below.
Something bad about every U.S. state.
Right, okay.
Hawaii is our most recent state added to the Big 50 in 1959. The U.S. government had their eyeballs all over the little group of islands as a strategic military outpost in the 1800s.
Yes.
Not to mention the sugarcane plantations. Freedom forbid any smelly European or Asian countries get their grubby paws on it. So with that in mind, as well as wanting to circumvent any potential sugar tariffs, a couple of U.S. businessmen with a couple of U.S. Marines pointed a couple of their U.S. guns at Hawaiian King Kalakaua in 1887, forcing him to sign over power to the United States. But after the king kamei'd his last hame, his sister, Queen Liliuokalani, tried to regain power, but the US was all, ha! So one cuckoo kachu later, and the Republic of Hawaii was established in 1894, led by one Sanford Dole, whose cousin would go on to form the Hawaiian Pineapple Company, which would later become the Dole Food Company. If you've never had it, Dole Whip is freaking amazing. Highly recommend it. Ground zero for the
Okay, before we move on, okay, so Hawaii was reluctantly brought into the possession of the US. Is that right? I thought it would be like a mutual kind of beneficial agreement. No? Oh, okay.
1918 influenza pandemic, the deadliest pandemic of the modern world, is widely believed to have been Camp Funston in Manhattan, Kansas. The camp itself was an army base training infantry in the closing months of World War I. Well, with failure to quarantine sick troops, the flu was definitely not just in Kansas anymore. Sickly soldiers were sent overseas where they oversneezed in Europe, spreading the flu worldwide. By the end of the pandemic around 1921, roughly 500 million people around the globe had been infected, with death toll estimates ranging from 50 to 100 million poor souls.
Is it? Oh, before we move on to New Mexico, so I'm taking from that is the narrator here saying that the Spanish influenza kind of began in Kansas. I find that a little bit hard to believe. I actually, even to this day, I'm not even really sure I've ever been told where the origin of this virus has come from. I mean, do you need to know? Yes, widely regarded as one of the worst pandemics in modern history, even in the last, well, in any history. Yes, it's still regarded as one of the worst ones. I forget the figures. Was it 2% of the entire world's population was actually wiped out by the Spanish influenza? There's something ridiculous like that. I remember, I don't think COVID quite hit those numbers, but it wasn't terribly far off. It was still absolutely devastating, but the Spanish flu was horrendous. So yes, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. So is this narrator, was he saying it started in Kansas, or was he saying that because of the failure to quarantine the soldiers that, were symptomatic and definitely had the flu, they were then taken across the world and relocated, and then that spread like wildfire. Is that what he's saying here? Okay, let me know. New Mexico.
16th, 1945 saw the detonation of the world's first nuclear weapon at the Trinity Nuclear Testing Site in the Jornada del Muerto Desert in New Mexico. The successful detonation was the catalyst for the construction of the 2 atomic bombs that were dropped on Japan towards the end of World War II. It's just a shame that thousands of New Mexico locals were never warned about the testing because they caught some heavy radiation dosages. Between the years of
Oh, that's bad. Were they less informed of radiation sickness and radiation and the harm that radiation can do and the effects on the body at this point in time? I'm choosing to believe they're not aware of it, and that is why they did not make residents aware that these, levels of radiation were going to soar and be this high. Maybe they weren't aware. Yes, they were aware that it was going to cause all this level of radiation. Why would they not have informed the residents? That's awful.
1948 and 1975, the Aberdeen Proving Ground facility in Aberdeen, Maryland, hosted a wealth of unethical human experiments on U.S. Army soldiers. About 7,000 soldiers were experimented on, all without informed consent, meaning that they had no idea what they were getting into. The men were exposed to over 250 different chemical weapons, including mustard gas, deadly nerve agents, and psychoactive substances for the sake of researching effects, preventative measures, and medical treatments. Despite the lethality of some of these substances, dosages were low enough where no deaths were reported.
I mean, is that the worst case scenario? There's still plenty of side effects that you could be living with for the rest of your life. It's not just okay that there weren't fatalities. That is awful. That is actually shocking. What year was this?
These are getting dark really quick.
Yeah.
So here's a silly one.
Okay.
The Aroostook War of 1838 was a bloodless armed standoff between American and British Canadian lumberjacks. While they slept all night and worked all day, there was a disagreement about where the US-Canadian border actually was.
Okay.
So both sides, eager to chop into the Aroostook River Valley's supple, sappy trees, got into a bit of a kerfuffle. Troops were deployed, but no shots were fired and no lives were lost. Instead, everyone skipped and jumped home to cut down trees on their respective sides. The 1974 super outbreak was one of the most intense tornado outbreaks in recorded history, with 147 separate tornadoes formed in a 25-hour period across 13 states, with Indiana being hit the hardest. 47 fatalities, 1,000 injuries, and hundreds of millions of dollars in damages were reported. That blows.
I can imagine should a tornado of that magnitude happen now, the fatalities would be worse, do you think? Just because of I'd assume these places were more populated these days. We have more people living around, don't we? Maybe infrastructure might be a little bit more complex, a lot more areas built up. So, or are they designed to withstand these, tornadoes, hurricanes? Are they just... I'm a little bit clueless about what I'm talking about here, guys. Help me out. Let me know in the comments. Yeah. Would it be worse, do you reckon? Now, I'm thinking fatalities, casualties wise, and the damage done. It must be. Yeah, it must be. Oof.
Just slightly west of Virginia is West Virginia, home to the worst mining disaster in the history of the United States, so far. On December 6, 1907, the Fairmont Coal Company's number 6 and number 8 mine shafts in the town of Monongah went kablooey. Two separate methane explosions instantly killed hundreds of workers in the mines and trapped any of those fortunate enough to survive, but their luck quickly ran out. The combined blast collapsed most of the existing cave structure and the ventilation shaft, blocking off fresh air and building up toxic gases which suffocated the trapped miners.
Do you think that would be... gosh, there's not morbid way to actually say this. Is that a slower but more peaceful way to die? Like, do you just fall into unconsciousness, like falling into a sleep? Gosh, that sounds awful. I mean, it's a painless. Is it a painless way to die? Because the oxygen deprivation, but then the toxic gases. Oh gosh, it's so horrible to think about. I'd hope that at least it was painless and just kind of just slowly drifted off. And
the lack of any safety standards or respiratory safety equipment made rescue attempts hopeless. Only 5 men managed to be saved, with 362 lives lost. The tragedy sparked public outcry for stricter safety standards, and in 1910, the US government established the Bureau of Mines with the goal of reducing mining accidents, though it had been a few decades before any safety standards would be enforced. Bet you don't yearn for the mines anymore, do you? In 1879, members of the Osage Native tribe struck oil on their reservation. The US government did what it does and quickly swooped in to establish oil production and paid out royalties to the members of the Osage tribe.
I hope they paid them fairly,
catapulting them to astronomical levels of wealth. And that's when the mysterious death started. You see, Congress, not believing that the natives were capable of managing their wealth by themselves, appointed American businessmen and lawyers to look after their finances as legal guardians. Well, throughout the 1920s, some of these guardians began the systematic murder of 60 Osage natives in order to inherit their wealth.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's been fine lines, dots, ticks, crossing the T's that has stated in there that these men then stand to inherit these lands should anything happen to the original owners of the land. Oh, why couldn't they have just ended it as, okay, well, you know, they've sent legal advice out there and they're on hand. Should you need any questions answering about, you know, the legalities of what to do with your and the oil on your land, blah, 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 blah. Why would they have to take ownership? That's disgusting. What's it have to do with send advisors? And that's that.
Formal investigations were launched, becoming one of the first major investigations conducted by the FBI. If you want to read more about this, I highly recommend the book Killers of the Flower Moon. There was also a film adaptation done recently, but it apparently wasn't as good. Louisiana.
Book,
in the early 1900s, there was a plethora of invasive water hyacinths just gunking up the local rivers.
Oh, but they look nice. Oh, I like hyacinths. So, okay, they're invasive and they're no good here.
Not to mention a pervasive meat shortage. So in order to feed 2 birds with 1 scone, the American Hippo Bill was proposed to Congress. The bill would import African hippos to munch on the plants, only for said hippos to be subsequently munched on by Americans.
As soon as they said this, right, how many times, this is probably maybe one of the first incidents maybe of relocating a different species, a different animal into a completely different habitat in the hopes of solving a problem, whether it's a pest, in this case, yes, the pests are the hyacinths. I don't think I've heard of one incidence of removing an animal from that ecosystem into another one. I don't think I've ever heard of one instance where it's been successful. Only the ongoing jokes and the unsuccessful incidences. Such as like the cane toads being relocated into Australia for one of them. When will we learn?
Other animals were on the list, including Manchurian pigs, African buffalo, Tibetan yaks, rhinos, and of course, dik-diks. Sadly, the bill never passed, thwarting American plans to deep-throat delicious and nutritious dik-dik meat. A series of massive earthquakes completely rocked southeast Missouri in...
Before we move on, I've never heard of that animal before. It's a dik-dik. Oh, it looks really cute. Delicious dik-dik meat. Oh my god. Oh my gosh.
1811.
Okay,
One 8.0 magnitude earthquake was so severe that it caused sections of the Mississippi River to flow backwards and several parts of the surrounding landscape to go all bleh. Some people died, probably. On April 12, 1861, those gosh dang Confederates bombarded Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina for 34 hours straight and 0 hours gay, marking the start of the United States Civil War, which would go on to claim the lives of nearly 700,000 people.
That was obviously going to be the darkest day in history, or period in history, for South Carolina. Should have seen that one coming.
The worst massacre in U.S. history involving a school dates all the way back to 1927 in the small town of Bath, Michigan. Local disgruntled douche Andrew Kehoe used dynamite to destroy the Bath Consolidated School, an expensive upgrade to the local school district. The construction and maintenance of the school caused local property taxes to shoot up to account for operating costs. Kehoe, who was already on edge from his failing farming and political careers, as well as a terminally ill wife, had hit a breaking point with the steeper tax burden. Over the course of several months, Kehoe had managed to purchase multiple crates of dynamite, something typically used in farming at the time for stump and boulder removal.
Right.
And it hid them throughout the school. On the morning of May 18th, 1927, the dynamite was detonated, killing 38 in the process and injuring dozens more.
Why did he have to detonate it with people inside? What a douchebag.
While the chaos ensued, Kehoe had murdered his wife, destroyed his own farm, and drove to the school with his truck packed with more dynamite. He parked his car in front of the school and detonated the truck, taking himself and a few bystanders out with him. Luckily, though, a second hoard of dynamite within the school failed to detonate, preventing further loss of life. This single tragedy had claimed a quarter of the town's children.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's horrendous. Well, I was just about to say, well, maybe he euthanized his terminally ill wife, but it just sounds like he is an absolute utter douchebag. I mean, okay, if that's how you're going to go out, you don't need to take innocent people and children. Oh my gosh, that's the worst. Why? Okay,
California, the United States' sweaty ass crack, boasts the largest economy in the country, which is perfect, because that's what they need to constantly fund relief efforts for the thousands of wildfires each year burning millions of acres. In 2020 alone, California saw over 9,600 wildfires with almost 4.4 million acres reduced to char.
Over 9,600 individual forest fires. My brain can't even fathom the time scale that can happen. Is that in 1 year? Oh my gosh. That was 2020. I thought it said 1920. It's 2020. So presumably a number of them have to be going, quite a high number of them have to be going on at the same time. Ooh.
Do better, get wetter. Extremely heavy and frequent rainfall in 1926 through 1927 culminated in the Great Mississippi River Flood of 1927. The big old river traveled across the land, flooding far and wide through several states including Arkansas, Louisiana, Tennessee, and of course, Mississippi. Around 500 souls were washed away and several hundred thousands of people were displaced from their homes, resulting in upwards of $10 billion in damages.
I'm going to say again, so 100 years ago, we've got less populated areas here. So 500 people, 500 deaths and damage. But the 500 deaths, that's going to have been quite a large portion of the population, right? Or was this spread over states? Still, oh my gosh. Devastating.
The U.S. Dakota War of 1862 in Minnesota resulted in the largest public execution in United States history. The people of the Dakota Native American tribe were pretty darn pissed as incoming settlers sought to manifest their destiny across the Midwest.
Yes.
After constant displacement and being on the brink of starvation due to poor farming and hunting conditions, the Dakota had just about enough. A small group of Dakota men had attacked and killed 5 settlers, including a man, his wife, and their teenage daughter.
Oh, this is where I start losing empathy for, you know, peoples that have been oppressed or, you know, hard done to, like this. You don't, killing of the children and the women, like, I'm not saying, you know, killing anyone or killing the men is tolerable. It's not. It's awful. But I don't know. Oh, just
This escalated into a small uprising, which was stomped out by the U.S. Volunteer Army over the course of about a month and a half. Over 350 U.S. civilians were massacred, with 150 Dakota natives killed in the clash. After all was said and done, 400 Dakota men faced trial, with 303 sentenced to death, though President Lincoln did reduce this down to just 38 men sentenced for execution. These men received their short drop and a sudden stop in front of a public crowd on December 26, 1862. Since 2007,
so collectively that was about, what, 450 people died? It's a lot of people.
Over 20 detached and decayed human feet have been washed ashore along the coast of the Salish Sea in northeastern Washington.
Decaying feet? Why feet?
The feet have been found in various shoes, supposedly protected from additional predation from scavengers. Several of the feet have been identified as remains of missing people or those suspected of ending their own life within the area. Pretty sad, but hey, free shoes. In perhaps the worst lapse of judgment in the history of mankind, the city of Cleveland, Ohio organized Balloonfest in 1986. The goal of the event was to break a world record of most balloons released simultaneously.
I'd be more impressed if the buoyancy of those balloons could lift up a house, like in the film Up.
But I guess no one realized that balloons don't rise in perpetuity. Shortly after the release of over 1.5 million inflatables,
what am I looking at right now?
A storm system promptly blew the elastic spheres back to Earth, blanketing the city and polluting Lake Erie. Airplanes were grounded, fishermen went missing, waterways became clogged, and many lawsuits were issued. All in all, the cleanup cost the city of Cleveland over $5 million.
Oh, that's the worst example of something so cheerful and happy with such good intentions ending in an absolute disaster. Oh, that makes me sad. Oh, the sight of all of those balloons was actually quite a happy sight. Oh dear.
The people of Oregon really hate it when you pronounce it as Oregon. So I've experienced.
Oregon.
But anyway, a few months after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, a single Japanese pilot flew a secret mission to bomb the forests of Oregon in an attempt to divert war supplies. Incendiary bombs were dropped in the forests of Brookings, but in terms of damage, they didn't do jack shit.
Thanks.
After the war, the Japanese pilot, Nobuo Fujita, was invited back to Brookings as a guest of honor in order to make amends, which he hesitantly accepted.
That's big.
As a formal apology for his actions, Fujita presented the city his family heirloom katana, one passed down across 400 years, which is still on display in the Chetco Public Library to this day.
Oh, look how pretty it is. Oh my gosh.
Timothy Treadwell.
So that's not, I mean, if it didn't actually do anything, that's not a massive disaster, is it? Surely there's got to have been darker points in the history of Oregon there. No? Okay. Possibly got off quite lightly then, if that's the darkest. Alaska.
Was a huge fan of wild grizzly bears.
Yeah.
Keyword being was. He spent about 13 summers living amongst them in Alaska. Returning one final time towards the end of autumn, the bears then became a huge fan of Timothy. One giant grizzly had attacked Timothy and his girlfriend, mauling and eating the couple. The bear was later shot and killed, with an autopsy confirming human remains in its stomach. Fellas, don't befriend giant wild animals. I don't care how cute their ears are. They're wild animals. They will murder you. North Carolina.
Oh, but I empathize because I like wildlife, and I know I've said this many times, but I am the idiot that tries to feed, definitely feed, I'm a feeder, these adorable looking wildlife. And the thing is, we're all conditioned to believe that bears are so adorable and cute, aren't we? We've all got teddy bears and stuffed bears. And it's a hard reality to accept that they're, they'd maul you given half the chance. Oh, that's a sad one. But again, that's something that's happened to a couple, and although it's very, very sad, it's very tragic that it's happened to this couple. If that's the darkest thing that's happened in the history of Alaska, that's not too bad. Obviously not for that poor couple, but there's no plagues, there's no uprising, no sieges or such.
Carolina almost became No Carolina in 1961 after a B-52 bomber carrying a payload of 2 nuclear bombs headed towards the Canadian Arctic experienced a catastrophic failure and broke up mid-air shortly after takeoff. The destroyed aircraft unintentionally dropped the bombs back down to Earth, with one falling from the plane as if properly deployed, initiating a sequence of safety switches for detonation. However, one final safety switch failed to actuate, saving North Carolina and a few surrounding states from becoming nothing more than a big black smudge on the globe.
Okay.
That
was very, very lucky.
Bomb slammed into the Earth, but very luckily remained intact and relatively undamaged.
How?
Both bombs were rated as 3.8 megaton bombs, about 250 times more powerful than those dropped on Japan at the end of World War II. So yeah, the US almost accidentally nuked itself into oblivion. During the
I know I just said how lucky that was. That could have been absolutely catastrophic. Catastrophic. Wyoming.
events of World War II, tens of thousands of Japanese Americans were relocated to several internment camps across the country out of fear of domestic attacks. One such camp was the Heart Mountain Camp in Park County, Wyoming, which housed 14,000 Japanese Americans during its 3 years of operation between 1942 and 1945. The camp boasted many activities, a poorly supplied school for children, a hospital, and many sports and social clubs, but they were still forced to be there and heavily monitored. Way back before the US was even established,
See, that's another thing as well. I don't really know the extent. I mean, maybe conditions there were horrible. Maybe life there was miserable and awful. But that, we're not talking natural disasters. We're not talking plagues. But before as I'm saying this, I am aware that maybe conditions there were absolutely horrendous. In which case, yes, that is very, very, very dark, a very bad history. But I don't know what the conditions were like for the residents here. Let me know.
The English colony of Jamestown, Virginia was formed in 1607.
Yes.
Just a few years later, settlers experienced what is known as the starving time. The combined effects of the brutal winter of 1609, food shortages, devastating disease, and constant Native American attacks really screwed over colonists who resorted to pure desperation for survival. The colonists ate dogs, rats, their own shoes, and each other in order to survive. 300 settlers saw the beginning of winter, but only 60 saw the beginning of spring. The state of Rhode Island saw around 1,000 slaving voyages between the 18th and 19th century, bringing in an estimated 100,000 slaves to the Americas.
That's enough. That's enough of a bad, dark history, isn't it?
Residents outside of Exeter, New Hampshire, all reported...
Okay, so we're up to New Hampshire. I just popped my earphone out. Right, there we go. Okay, go.
Seeing the same strange light pattern in the sky across several evenings in 1965.
Oh?
The large object...
Oh, yes, they're obviously going to be flagged up as UFO sightings. Is the right kind of time of year, I think, time era for all of the UFO sightings that happened. I think there was like a burst of them ever since like the 1940s to the 50s. There was a lot of UFO sightings in the US in particular, and probably the 60s as well.
Object reportedly moved silently across the night sky, emitting eerie red lights in a specific pattern. The event terrified locals in the area for years, though skeptics have debunked this event as simply a mid-air refueling drill performed by the United States Air Force. Specifically, KC-97 tankers flashed red lights in the same exact pattern that was described by eyewitnesses.
Yes.
The city of Wilmington, Delaware experienced a catastrophic outbreak of cholera and typhoid fever in the late 1800s thanks to rapid industrialization shitifying up the local water sources.
Yeah.
With hundreds sick and dozens dying, the city had to drastically overhaul the local sewer system, including installing a water purification plant in the early 1900s. But at least you can breathe a fresh sigh of relief nowadays.
Yes, it seems to follow industrialization, doesn't it? These outbreaks of cholera, typhoid, diphtheria, dysentery. Yeah, there's been, I think, 2 major cholera pandemics in the UK. Maybe slightly earlier, 2 that I know of anyway. But yeah, it does normally follow periods of industrialization, doesn't it?
This is a devil's hole pupfish,
Nevada.
a critically endangered and supremely cute species of fish found only in the Devil's Hole in the Death Valley National Park in Nevada. Or Nevada for the locals. The fish were first discovered back in the 1940s and were almost immediately attempted to be protected. In 1967, they were officially listed as endangered thanks to local drilling by development companies, which reduced water levels within the cave system. Despite aggressive conservation efforts, there were only 38 of the little guys in existence as of spring 2025, making them one of the most critically endangered species on Earth. The great
They look like Siamese fighting fish, but with like a shorter little fin. Oh, we used to have some of those. Oh, they're cute little fellas, but they are one of the most endangered species. I suppose if they're only found here, then yeah, they're always going to be at a higher risk of having something happen to their environment and then risking the numbers. It's good that they're so closely monitored, though. How many did it say? Was it 38? Did he say? Oh. So we're on to Florida.
Jacksonville fire of 1901 completely reshaped the city of Jacksonville, Florida. After a rogue kitchen fire broke out, the flames quickly spread to a nearby mattress factory. After more than 8 hours, the inferno finally came under control after completely engulfing the majority of the city, destroying almost 2,400 buildings in the process, rendering 10,000 people homeless and 7 people dead. Now that's what I call a fire sale.
Still too soon to joke. Fire sale. Oh, so we've got the Great Fire of London, and you've got a similar kind of event that took place in Florida. Baker kitchen fire. It said here, wasn't it? I think ours began. I say ours. London's began in a bakery. I can't remember the name of the street or anything where it happened. But yeah, I think if I remember my history, that's how it began. Okay, so we're moving on to Colorado.
Farmers in the late 1960s and early 1970s were pretty pissed to find their precious moo cows slaughtered and mutilated beyond natural means. Investigations clocked in over 8,000 separate mutilations over the years. Some of the bulbous bovines were found to have sedatives in their systems, while others were secretly marked with fluorescent paint.
What?
Unidentified aircraft in the area were spotted, suggesting government interventions or possible secret weapons testing, but no conclusive evidence was ever found. 19th century.
Oh, that's awful. 8,000. That's a very, very big scale. Government experimentation, whatever it is that has happened here. Oh my gosh. Why mutilated? Why? I mean, and when you think about the cost of livestock as well, that's cost a lot of farmers, that's cost a lot of people a lot of money. I hope they were compensated.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania saw the rise of several teeth thieves who would go around robbing graves of entire bodies. The corpses would be sold to nearby medical schools for anatomical study, while the teeth were extracted and sold to companies who made dentures. Remember to smile. Kentucky is home to
teeth. That's where I wondered why they said teeth thieves. Ooh. Oh gosh, you would have to have. I mean, you'd have to be deranged or desperate, wouldn't you, to even entertain doing something like that. I hope it paid well. You'd have to have a strong stomach. Okay, moving on to
The
Kentucky.
McCoy family, one half of the infamous Hatfield-McCoy family feud. Initial squabbles began in the 1870s over the Civil War, with the Hatfields being Confederate sympathizers and the McCoys being pro-Union. Across 30 years, multiple lawsuits, thefts, and even murders escalated the feud, with over a dozen family members killed. The feud finally came to an end in the late 1890s. Or did it? About 100 years after the start of it all, descendants of the families came together to duke it out on the game show Family Feud in 1979, with the McCoys coming out on top. Nowadays, the family homes are tourist attractions, holding annual festivals with activities like tug of war and sight tours to commemorate the decades-long dispute. Just
Wow. Okay. How do you resolve your family disputes for over 100 years? You go on an American TV show, duh. How was that awkward? I imagine that was really uncomfortable to watch. No?
north of South Dakota is North Dakota, and boy did it suffer a harsh winter in 1936. Record low temperatures plummeted all the way down to negative 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, for the British of us, what's that in Celsius? I'm gonna check. Okay. Oh gosh. Okay. What? Oh, no. Convert Fahrenheit to Celsius. And what are we on? Is it minus 60? Get that minus in there, makes all the difference. Is this right, or have I messed it up by putting that minus in there? So that's roughly around minus 50, minus 51 degrees Celsius. Is that right? That is surely got to be close to the coldest place on Earth. Maybe I've converted it wrong. Blame Google. That's disgustingly cold.
That's negative 51 C for you foreigners. The frigid forecast froze farm fauna fleeing for favorable feverishness. Entire towns burned through their coal supplies, leaving families to die in their homes from exposure. In 1847, nearly 200 Dutch immigrants made their way over from the Netherlands to Wisconsin in search of a better life, but a similar cold climate. After months of crossing the Atlantic and scooting in through to the Great Lakes, the freaky deaky Dutch were just about to set foot in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, when a poorly maintained boiler overheated, causing a fire to erupt on board the very wooden ship. Unfortunately, the ship only had 2 lifeboats, capable of holding about 20 people each. Of the few hundred people aboard, only 45 managed to escape on the lifeboats. The Phoenix, ironically, went down in a blaze, never to rise from the ashes, because they were washed away.
That is... Oh, it's like a bit of foreshadowing, isn't it? Naming that boat the Phoenix. Oh, they got all that way. Just at the last hurdle here for that to happen. So I was just about to say, similar huge oversights that happened on aboard the Titanic. Not enough lifeboats by a significant amount, not by half. But this is even worse. So you'd like to think, I think the worst thing about catastrophes like this throughout history, absolute tragedies happening, is that at least we learn from them, you know? That's the best outcome. I think when these awful, awful things happen, take the learning. Make sure it doesn't ever happen again. And then for history to repeat itself like this is the worst possible outcome. It is adding insult to injury. It makes me so cross. Safety first, always.
Serious deaths surrounding the Ray family had caused concern for the townsfolk of Jewett City, Connecticut. The supposedly healthy family members were stricken down left and right from an undetectable killer. The boys of the family became paler by the day and were seen coughing up blood until ultimately passing away within the coming days. The reasonable cause of death, the townsfolk thought, was vampires. In order to stop the undead from rising and killing others, the recently deceased were exhumed from their graves and burned.
Why? I know we're talking about a while ago, but why would that be the first thing that you thought? Would you not think, oh, there's an illness? Or, I know this is before genetics, but a family inherited illness? No?
The real culprit? Tuberculosis. Conveniently
I said
enough, though,
tuberculosis.
the burning of the corpses probably did prevent the contagious disease from spreading any further. Go figure.
Or the other one I was going to say is maybe is there like some kind of fuel, like a gas being released from a fuel that maybe they're burning in the home for whatever reason, or a contaminant in the soil. I'm grasping, but yes, tuberculosis, coughing up blood. Bit of a telltale sign, I think.
In 1855,
Arizona?
the U.S. government approved the import of several camels to serve as pack animals through the arid landscape of the Southwest,
Okay, how did
formally
that go?
establishing the United States Camel Corps. But then the Civil War broke out a few years later in 1861, and the camels were either sold off or completely abandoned in the desert, supposedly being spotted over the next several decades.
If enough of them were out there, do you think they'd kind of like repopulate and there'd be herds of camels? Are they a herd? Camels?
Roam free, fellas. Boston, Massachusetts is home
Go
to the
forth and
deadliest
multiply.
nightclub fire in U.S. history. The Coconut Grove Fire burned itself into
Another
people's memories in
fire.
1942 with a wealth of poor safety choices leading to the brutal blaze.
Always
Exit
the
doors
case.
were chained up to prevent unauthorized access, air conditioners were filled with flammable refrigerants, and everyone was packed in like sardines. Not to mention the fact that all of the lavish interior decor could catch fire faster than a witch in Salem. In all, 492 people ended up dying in the inferno. The club owner, Barney Walensky, who was very much aware of his club's safety code violations, was convicted on just 19 counts of manslaughter and was sentenced to just 15 years in prison.
Why only 19? Were they the wealthiest of all of the deaths?
Though he was pardoned after just 4. He ended up dying a few weeks after release from cancer. Now, when you're chilling in
Well.
class,
Doesn't even need a comment, does it?
the last thing you want to experience is a big old gas explosion. But unfortunately, the students in the New London School in New London, Texas, were about to do just that. All right, class, who could tell me what happens when you hook a big chunk of magnesium into some water? Yep, Ron. That's an easy one. It just, after recently canceling their natural gas supply contract to save a few buckaroos, the school board decided to instead tap into a local gasoline waste line to supplement the demand. The shitty and shoddy plumbing work caused natural gas leaks throughout the school's basement crawl spaces. Now keep in mind that natural gas is colorless and odorless, so no one was really
No one
aware
could
of any
detect it.
leaks, except for the students who complained of headaches, though they were ignored by the staff.
Yes, it's a common symptom of carbon monoxide poisoning, isn't it? Flu-like symptoms, headaches.
Get out of here, go on, get. The creeping gas cloud was inadvertently ignited on March 18th, 1937, causing an instantaneous explosion that killed 295 out of roughly 500 students and staff present in the building. The disaster led to a reform of requiring odorous additives to be added to natural gas supplies for better detection of leaks. If you're looking
So, again, an awful, horrible, horrible tragedy that happened in history, but a positive outcome because, you know, it's led to legislation being changed and smelly additives have been added to gases so they're detectable. So at least something positive came out of it, but more than half of the staff and pupils of that school died. Oh, it's horrible.
Looking for a breath of fresh air, New York City
York.
is probably not the best place to do so, especially in 1966. The Great New York City Smog blanketed the Big Apple in a giant fart cloud of carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and smoke. The dense haze persisted for 3 days across the 1966 Thanksgiving weekend. A public health study estimated that about 10% of the city's population suffered some adverse health effects from sucking in the smelly smog.
He said, was it sulfur dioxide that was in that cloud as well? Oh my gosh. There was a similar smog in the UK. I can't remember what year this happened, but I think it did actually result in fatalities. So I'm quite surprised to hear that there wasn't any here Fortunately.
In the end, 168 New Yorkers ended
I
up
spoke too
biting the
soon.
dust, prompting President Lyndon B. Johnson and several members of Congress to produce the 1967 Air Quality Act and amendments to the 1970 Clean Air Act, which heavily reduced air pollution down to more manageable levels of toxicity. In the wake
Am I right in thinking that these the smog clouds are generated from maybe industrial fumes, but also car exhausts? Am I right? Let me know. Let me know.
wake of the U.S. Civil
Tennessee.
War, the South was really hurting for some cheap labor as all of their slaves were just freed thanks to the 13th Amendment. The best alternative?
Yes.
Prisoners. Convicts were extremely cheap compared to full-time employees, so in the early 1890s, Coal Creek mine owners decided to lay off their workforce and instead conscripted convicted criminals to work the mines for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
But instead of milling around, the recently sacked and salty miners decided to pick a fight, sparking the Coal Creek War of 1891. The manic miners attacked a load of state prisons and mining properties, ensuring their efforts would not be in vain. The National Guard was called in, arresting over 500 workers. The scuffle did result in Tennessee ending their convict leasing program in 1896, so that's a win. Sweet home.
I mean, where do I stand on this? It doesn't happen over here, so I don't really know. Do I think it's wrong that convicts are expected to provide labour? Not really. Sorry for the noise, guys. I think next door are having some work done. If you can hear that. Yeah, I don't think that's horrendous, but I think there's too much opportunity there for it to be abused, which would make it horrendous. I don't think. I think it's not necessarily a bad thing to expect convicts to work on some level or to kind of replace or act like some kind of employment, which would be cheap labor. But again, there's far too much opportunity there for people to exploit it. So I mean, I don't know, does this happen in the US anymore? I'm thinking of Orange is the New Black. Is it something that happens in some states or anywhere at all where convicts are used for cheap labor? Let me know. It's an interesting one. It doesn't happen in the UK at all. Maybe sometimes you get like a public service as a punishment instead of, to avoid a custodial sentence. But I don't think I wouldn't say it looks like it's cheap labor or labor intensive at all.
Alabama is home to Yellow Mama, an electric chair built in 1927 by master carpenter and inmate Ed Mason. 152 criminals have gotten the sweet, stinging embrace of Yellow Mama's arms, with her final zap being performed in 2002. Since then, death row inmates were given the legal right to choose their demise, either lethal injection or the chair. And to no surprise, they opt for the less painful option.
Well, yes.
As such, Yellow Mama remains locked away in the attic of the Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore, Alabama, patiently waiting for her next victim. Imagine you're—
Oh, that's macabre. That is morbid. So they still keep it there. Why is that an option? Why is that actually given to inmates on death row, if you still refer to it as death row? Why is that given as an option? It seems like a bit of a no-brainer. Do I want an agonizing death where my blood and bodily fluids is literally boiled while I burn from the inside out in the electric chair? Or do I want an injection which is going to put me to sleep permanently? Presumably peacefully. Is it peacefully? It's like that line, is that even a question? Do people ever choose the electric chair? And if they did, would their sanity be questioned? Interesting question. I've got lots of questions about this video, guys.
your life as a beaver, munching away on a tree or building a dam, when all of a sudden you get yoinked away from your beaver family, put in a tiny box, flown up to the sky, and hucked out of an airplane.
This was a fat electrician video. It's very entertaining. If you haven't seen it, guys, go away and have a look at it.
To be parachuted down miles away from home. That's exactly what the Idaho Department of Fish and Game did in 1948 after locals complained of excessive property damage.
But it worked!
76 beavers were relocated from northwest Idaho to central Idaho via airdrop using leftover World War II parachutes.
Yes.
One beaver died. Very sad.
And only one beaver died. If I remember the video, it's something bizarre, like this beaver managed to get out of his little box and rode the box with the parachute down literally until about so many feet above the air. I did a fair amount of the journey, tolerated it. It was like, okay. And then kind of last minute freaked out and boycotted it and jumped. But out of, I can't remember how many it did say there, only one died. And it was very successful, wasn't it? I know I mentioned earlier, I've not actually heard of one successful reintroducing a species into a different habitat. This is actually one. I know it's not too far away. Well, still quite a distance. But I'm lying, actually, because this is the only one that I've actually heard of that was successful. So, yes, although one did, unfortunately, pass away. It did die. Accidentally.
A big-ass swarm of locusts tore across the Midwest in 1874, devastating any and all vegetation, food, clothes, and farming equipment for days on end,
That would have been
with Nebraska
horrendous.
taking most of the damage. Water sources were contaminated and livestock were consumed. High estimates place the swarm size at upwards of 12.5 trillion locusts. I mean, there were quite literally a blanket of locusts a foot high off the ground. The swarm, spanning across 2 million square miles, reportedly blocked out the sun for multiple hours during their flight. By the time the locust plague had passed, the Midwest had sustained over $200 million in crop damages.
If you imagine, in that time era, I don't know what crop did he just say? I missed it if he did. I'm not sure what crop it is, but say like even if it was just like sugar cane, or I don't know which crop, that could have a detrimental effect on populations, families, people in the US at that time, because you'd be looking at starvation and food shortages 100%.
Bennington Triangle, located across southwestern Vermont, saw several people disappear under mysterious circumstances between 1945 and 1950. The most well-known case being the disappearance of 18-year-old student Paula Jean Weldon, who up and vanished in 1946 and was never seen again. The young girl had reportedly left her college campus in the afternoon and proceeded to walk 6 miles to a nearby trail before going missing. Lack of substantial police investigation, evidence, or witnesses left the case cold. The poorly run investigation had prompted the Vermont legislature to create the Vermont State Police just 7 months after Paula Jean's disappearance.
So what was the reason behind the lack of police investigation here? Was it maybe that they didn't have the resources? That's a weird one. Why, unless maybe they determined very early on that something untoward had happened to her, something quite malicious, like a kidnap or murder, maybe. Possibly.
Hundreds
South
of
Dakota.
Lakota Sioux natives were gunned down during the Wounded Knee Massacre of 1890 after natives began expressing frustration and anger over continued forced relocation and broken promises from the U.S. government. You suck. A new religious movement called the Ghost Dance, a literal dance performed in hopes of ridding the land of white settlers, was seen as a potential act of rebellion. That's scary, I don't like that. As a precaution, natives were rounded up and disarmed by the U.S. Army. A misunderstanding surrounding an accidental misfire of a rifle started the massacre, which saw the murder of about 300 native men, women, and children. Montana is home.
All they were doing was a dance. Oh my gosh. Oh, it's not the first one mentioned in this list. That's horrendous. Yep. That is awful. I understand the idea of it, the authorities being unnerved by it, but are they being violent? Are they being disruptive? Possibly disruptive, maybe. But, you know, there's no violence going on there. Why did you have to treat it with gunfire? I know it was accidental, but misunderstood gunfire.
To one of the most famous archaeological hoaxes of all time, the Cardiff Giant. A quote-unquote petrified man supposedly recovered from a well in 1869 by 2 local workers. The giant hardened human stood at over 10 feet tall and weighed about 3,000 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
The giant acted as an attraction to which thousands of tourists flocked for 50 cents a pop.
Why was it called the Cardiff Giant? Cardiff is the capital of Wales to any British person. Why is the place here? Was a mine called Cardiff? I'm not sure. Was it just named after the capital of Wales?
Roughly $12 in today's money, accounting for inflation. Visitors stood in complete awe at the supposed relic of human history as proof of how giants once roamed the earth. But in reality, the stone statue was just that, a statue. It was created by one George Hull in an attempt to show how easily the public could be fooled by fake artifacts. He constructed the statue and buried it in the aforementioned well, where a year later, he instructed his unaware workers to dig it up as a genuine artifact. Well. Shut up.
Well.
After just 2 months of worldwide spectacle, Hull proudly confessed to the hoax as one big gotcha moment, calling everyone a bunch of stupid idiots. Well, there you go. That's something historically bad about every U.S. state. If you want to hear some weird stuff about every country in the world, click this. I'll see you over there.
That last one, that's a silly one. That is not the darkest history from here, surely. I was expecting the reveal at the end of that to be that this I forget his name, the gentleman here, he did this prank in order to make like a bit of a psychological experiment. No, he just wanted to show everyone how stupid they were. That level of commitment to some kind of spite is quite funny. Some of those are entertaining, like that last one. Some of them are silly, and they're a giggle. Many of them are absolutely horrendous. Like I say, though, natural disasters unavoidable a lot of the time, aren't they? Disease outbreaks, not an awful lot to be done. Although when we look back, it's easier to say, oh yeah, well, we should have done this. But at the time, you know, there's a number of things you could say they're not avoidable, but massacring, murders, fights, always avoidable. And that makes them particularly sad. I think they are the worst of the bad histories, definitely there. Especially the ones that involve, like 2 of those involve schools as well. It's many children's deaths, and it's all horrible. Oh, and the massacre of the natives as well. Children are involved in that. Very, very, they're the worst. They're the darkest histories by far. But some of them are quite silly. Some of them don't really sound that dark at all. Like a handful of those, if that's the baddest history about your state, you're doing okay. You know, you're a happy-go-lucky state. Like I say, in the UK, we've had, oh my gosh, sieges, civil wars, plagues, just to mention a few, uprisings, and invasions. England. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed watching along with me. Take care of yourselves, my lovelies, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.